This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
We argue a lot about our opinions about quarterbacks. Who do we think is good? Who do we not think is good? Why do you not think my favorite guy is good? You don't think my favorite guy is this, that, the third. I hate you. We have all of these arguments about quarterbacks, quarterback prospects, the prospects of quarterbacks in the future, whether it be the 2027 draft, the 2026 draft, the 2025 draft, whether it's quarterbacks on the roster, quarterbacks on other rosters. We're constantly arguing about quarterbacks, but we aren't discussing the incubator that the Browns create to develop these quarterbacks, which is also important. As possible, and it certainly is possible, it is to land on a quarterback prospect that can just change your life because he's so good. And it's happened. Drew Brees with the Saints completely changed their reality. It's happened with Joe Burrow and the Bengals. They were on their way to being a dumpster fire to get Joe Burrow 2 years later. They're in the Super Bowl. It's not because they had great development around Joe Burrow. It's because Joe Burrow's really good at football, right? A number of quarterbacks we have seen just be so transformatively good that they can just change everything about the franchise around them. They can make bad organizations model organizations. All of that is true. That is definitely a thing that can happen with a generational level quarterback or a top 5 level quarterback, right? I mean, think about the Ravens. John Harbaugh was on his way to being fired before Lamar Jackson showed up. Like, they were under 500. They were losing to Cleveland. They were about to get fired. And then Lamar saved his job. This is common knowledge, by the way, for anybody who wants to debate me on this. Go ask a Baltimore Raven fan about this. Like 80% of them will say, yeah, that's exactly what happened. They're like 20% diehards that would never want Harbaugh fired no matter what. But 80% of them, the people in reality, they would back me up on this. That being said, that's not the only way to get a quarterback. That's the way we all dream of giving a quarterback. And given the Browns' situation over the last 20 years, it's kind of how we felt like it's necessary to get a quarterback, or the only way that could save us. But there are other ways to do it. You could develop a quarterback. And see, we spend a lot of time arguing about what quarterbacks fit that first column I described, the generational ones that can change your outcome. It's like winning the lottery, right? You go from making a regular wage to $125 million. Changes your life instantly. And if you manage it properly, which is not hard to do with that much money, you can have a lifetime supply of money that you could go to and live a very comfortable life. So that is what we spend time arguing about. Is Shedeur Sanders going to be good enough to do that? Is Dylan, nobody's saying that about Dylan. I'm sorry, that wasn't meant to be shade. I'm sorry. My apologies. That was mean. I wasn't trying to be mean. But, is Ty Simpson that? Can we get this guy? Is Arch Manning going to be that next year? We spend a lot of time arguing that. But what I want to talk about in this video, it's just a conversation about developing quarterbacks, a conversation about what it is that the Browns need to have in their incubator for a quarterback. So let's talk about it. First thing I want to talk about is what I think is the most important thing when it comes to developing quarterbacks, which is being able to withstand shitty quarterback play. Here's what I mean. You throw a young quarterback out there. It's not guaranteed, but about 6 to 7 times out of 10, 70% of the time, maybe 60% of the time, they're going to play like shit. It just is what it is. The transition from college is very tough. The transition from college to certain divisions is even tougher. It's a very difficult thing to do. And the reality is like maybe 15%, not even that, but like 10% of the quarterbacks who've ever played college football are capable of sticking in the NFL for a significant part of the time. like less than 1% of them can actually be franchise quarterbacks. The odds are just against every rookie quarterback, even the ones drafted in the first round. Odds are more likely that they're going to play like shit, especially early in their career. But the problem with playing like shit isn't that it happens for a young quarterback. It's that it gets a quarterback taken off a field because football is a bottom line driven business. You need to win games. If you're not winning games and you're not contributing to winning, you're not going to stay on the field. If you don't stay on the field, you're not going to develop at a fast enough rate to be useful to a football team in the near future. And if you're not useful to a football team in the near future, you're going to spend your time as third string backup or practice squad. You're not going to get opportunities, and you're going to be out the league faster than sooner. Well, faster than longer. So if you want to develop a young quarterback, you have to have a team that can withstand things that are likely to happen with a young quarterback, which means you got to be able to win with shitty quarterback play because it's almost inevitable. Even when you're Drake May, the number 2 or number 3 pick in that draft, fantastic guy, plays to an MVP level this year. He gets to the playoffs for the first time. Ooh, he looks terrible. It's going to happen with young quarterbacks. That's going to happen. Now, obviously, if it happens and that's all you ever see, then there's no need to keep going. You want to see things that encourage you while the quarterback is out there, but you're going to have struggles no matter who that young quarterback is. So the biggest thing that the Browns need is a cushion. How can we keep whatever young quarterback we throw out there? If it's Anthony Richardson, if it's Shedeur Sanders, if it's Dylan Gabriel, if it's Ty Simpson, if they take a chance on Drew Aller, whoever it is, Drew Aller, whoever it is, they need to be able to keep that guy on the field long enough so that guy can develop and learn, right? And the way to do that is to be able to withstand some rookie mistakes. Now, the Browns do have a big chunk of this. I think a big chunk of that is having a defense that can bail you out of turnovers. The Browns have that. The Browns have the defense that can really muzzle the effect of turnovers. Like if you look at the Browns' point differential over the last few years, it's not as bad as it should be because the defense has really muzzled a lot of those turnovers. Turned a lot of touchdowns that should be touchdowns into extra points. Or not extra points, into field goals. Or field goals or drives that should be field goals into punts. The Browns have done an excellent job there. That's why they're positive in expected points every year on defense. So they got that part down, right? The Browns have a good enough defense to where you can play like absolute shit and you can still win a game at the quarterback position. And look, I don't want to point any fingers, but if you look at every quarterback who won a game for the Cleveland Browns last year, they all won because the defense was good. Like Joe Flacco won that game against Green Bay because the defense was dominant in it. Dylan Gabriel won that game against Miami because the defense was dominant in it. Every game that Shedeur Sanders won except for maybe the Raiders one, where I think Shedeur legitimately played well. The other 2 games that Shedeur won, the Steelers and the Bengals game, those were defensive performances. It's just what it is. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. That's just how shit happened, right? That's how things happened for the Browns last year. They were a pretty poorly quarterback team last year that won games because of the defense, because the defense was elite. So they have that. They can throw a young quarterback out there. That quarterback can make some mistakes, and they don't necessarily lose those games immediately because of that. So box number 1 checked off for a solid incubator for a quarterback. It's also worth mentioning that just because you have a good incubator doesn't mean that it guarantees that you're going to develop every quarterback. But it gives you a much better chance. The second thing that the Browns need in order to develop a quarterback is to have, how do I put this in a delicate way? They need to have easy buttons on offense that have very low thresholds of completion for the quarterback. To translate that into even simpler terms, The Browns need to have things they can rely on offensively that aren't complicated for the quarterback to get to, that it doesn't take that skilled of a quarterback to get to, right? Like, if your easy button on offense is that you have a great contested catch wide receiver who could catch in tight windows, but he's a wide receiver that really thrives in being open downfield rather than early. Well, that's a high threshold of skill to get to that point. You need to have an offensive line that can protect so the wide receiver can get to those breaks at the top of those very long routes. And you need a quarterback who can stay in the pocket and get the ball downfield to somebody to use that skill, right? Like to use that easy button. If it's too complicated, it's not going to get used. We've seen this. Odell Beckham with Baker Mayfield, right? It never was an easy button for Baker Mayfield because it just wasn't easy for Odell and Baker to be on the same page. So you need to have a easy button that's really accessible for your quarterback. My favorite thing for this is a run game. Takes nothing for a quarterback to hand the ball off, right? Lowest threshold of success is that. Another thing that people like to go to, this is the Shanahan way of doing things, is getting wide receivers who are really good at yak, right? 5-yard post, 5-yard slant, something quick hitter, little screen here, get some success rolling downhill. You need the easy button. Now, Harold Fannin is developing into that easy button. I think Quincy Judkins is developing into that easy button, but I don't think the success has been there yet to just declare them as easy buttons. I think you want more longevity than just 1 year, obviously, from rookies. But if they continue on that track, then maybe they could be that easy button, right? If Shador, if Dylan, if who they say they trade for Anthony Richardson or whatever quarterback you want to say is here, and all they got to do is hand that ball off to Quinshon to get the second and 6 or second and 3, that's an easy button. It's going to make their life a lot easier. So you need that. You need another star whose skill set is easily accessible for a bad quarterback on that offense. Not to say that every quarterback that you can play that's young is bad, but you just need to assume that they're not going to be good early on, right? If you make that assumption and you make decisions around that assumption, then you'll have a better chance of getting better results from that young quarterback. It's not a slight to them, right? I'm not going to give a young quarterback, or I wouldn't want the Browns to give a young quarterback some kind of complicated way of success when they haven't proven that they can play NFL football yet. So that's, I think, a huge part of it. Do the Browns have some answers there? Kind of, but nothing proven yet, right? Maybe they could get one in the draft too, but they're on the right track when it comes to that. Third thing is the offensive line, right? You need an offensive line. That's going to be real easy to help your easy buttons be successful, right? We talked about this with Quinshon. We talked about this with wide receivers. If you have a good offensive line, then all of a sudden your easy buttons are more accessible. All of a sudden there's more easy buttons available to you. All of a sudden the threshold for somebody to become an easy button is a lot lower when you got more time to process. It just lowers the floor for somebody. Well, not lowers the floor, raises the floor. My apologies. So offensive line, obviously important. You get a good offensive line, got an easy button on offense, a great defense. You're starting to build an incubator here for developing a quarterback. But what's the last thing a quarterback needs? It's a play caller. Somebody who understands that quarterback, and not just understands that quarterback, but believes in that quarterback. See, that's the biggest thing, is that you want a play caller who actually believes in their quarterback. Because when a play caller does not have faith in their quarterback, it's very obvious. Remember when Kyle Shanahan in the NFC Championship game would simply stop throwing the football because he stopped trusting Jimmy Garoppolo at certain points? Well, that's there, right? Look at the fluctuation of Justin Hurts' career and the amount of different play callers he's had. I don't think that's a coincidence, right? Some of them have a lot of faith in Justin. Some of them don't. You need, not Justin, my bad. That's fucked up. Jalen. Some of them don't. That's a huge part in this. You need a play caller who believes in whoever's at quarterback. Not to the like a blindfolded, I'll walk behind you no matter what degree, but to a reasonable amount, that they're not afraid of their quarterback. And I think that's a better way to phrase it. You need a play caller who's just not afraid of their quarterback, who's not terrified that their quarterback's going to fuck up the game. This is Kevin Stefanski. Like, if we're talking about flaws as the last coach, this is where Kevin Stefanski fell short. Kevin was terrified of every quarterback that ever played for Cleveland. And it was very obvious that he was terrified of him, right? If you ever just watch the Browns get a lead and in the game plan just turtle, it's because Kevin is terrified of his quarterbacks making mistakes. And it happened with everybody. Dylan Gabriel, he liked Dylan, right? Still happened with Dylan. Still happened with Joe Flacco. When you hear people talk about, oh, Kevin coaches the aggressiveness out of quarterbacks, not necessarily true. Like, there's a lot of stuff in Kevin's offense that require you to be pretty aggressive as a quarterback. It's not that he coaches the aggressiveness out of them. It's just that when it comes time for the game to be in a high leverage situation, Kevin Stefanski usually defaulted to not trusting his quarterback, no matter who it was, being more afraid of their quarterback making a mistake than being more confident that their quarterback's going to execute properly. And that meant that Kevin condensed what he would offer for the quarterback. Offer low mistake level plays, right? Now we're not going to put the ball in harm's way. We're not going to be aggressive like we were in the first half that got us this lead. We're going to play a little bit more scared. And then that feeling trickles into the quarterback, it trickles into the offense, and then that's kind of how the team plays. That was, I think, if I could pinpoint the biggest failing of Kevin Stefanski from the outside looking in, and I don't know if this is different from people who are actually on the sideline with them. And if you were, I would love to hear your opinion on this. But from my perspective, that seemed like the biggest problem with Kevin. He could never get to that part. It's going to be interesting to see what he does in Atlanta, but he seemed to have struggled to get to that part. And you look at 2020, the year he had success, right? 2023, the year he had success. That's also when he was the most okay with his quarterbacks making a mistake, right? Game on the line against Pittsburgh to get to the playoffs at the end of the 2020 season, he calls a Baker Mayfield quarterback run, showing tremendous faith in his quarterback. That didn't happen with Kevin in 21, in 22, 23, and 20. Well, a little bit in 23, and in 24 and 25. You need that play caller to be bought in. That's why it matters if the coach likes the quarterback prospect or not. That's why it matters if the coach is bought in. Because the coach is going to be closely connected to the play caller, or sometimes be the play caller. And if that guy does not buy into who the quarterback is, does not trust who the quarterback is, then, well, you're going to see shit like that. So that's the other part that I think is the most important. But that's what I think the Browns need to incubate a quarterback. Right now, we don't know if Todd Monken is going to be that level of play caller. We hope that that's the case, but we don't know. He's done well with Lamar Jackson. But, you know, what he's being asked to do in Cleveland is a different beast. There's no Lamar Jackson in this quarterback room. It's easy to trust Lamar Jackson when he got 2 MVPs before he got there. So, you know, it's a different situation here in Cleveland. You look at the offensive line, the Browns have clearly tried to build this offensive line. We'll see if it's successful. You look at the easy buttons, you see that they're trying to develop them, but they're not there yet. The defense is there yet. They have a couple of things down. They're working on the other things, but this is what you need to develop a quarterback. You need a quarterback who can be able to stay on the field, and you need to lower the threshold of skill needed for that quarterback to be able to stay on the field. Think about it like this. The reason that's so important, look at Brock Purdy when he first went out there, and look at him now. Brock Purdy, when he first went out there, wasn't that good. He was able to be carried by the rest of the team, and they were able to win games, which kept him on the field. But he wasn't that good at the beginning. You look at him 2-3 years later, though, after he's gotten on the field and had all this experience and built all this confidence, he's actually legitimately good now. Tom Brady's another perfect example of this. You go back and look at early Tom Brady. I know it's been like, since Tom Brady is legitimately the most accomplished and arguably the best quarterback in NFL history, we've kind of rewritten what his beginning of his career was, but he was not the guy at the beginning of his career. It was really about Bill Belichick's brilliance and that defense early on in New England. And then Tom kept playing and playing, and by the time we got to like 06, 07, we're like, Tom's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's developed himself into that. He's gotten better. And then obviously got better and better and better as his career went on to the point to where he became the greatest of all time. Ben Roethlisberger, another similar story. You go back, look at early Ben, he's not that good. But the Steelers were able to keep him on the field, give him reps, give him time, and then he turned into being that good. Now, again, I don't want to make this seem like you could give any quarterback reps in time, and then they're going to turn out good. For every Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Brett Favre, for every quarterback that took a little time to develop, there are 20, if not 30, Tavares Jacksons. You know what I mean? Unremarkable quarterbacks who got a bunch of time, weren't that good, and never ended up being that good, right? David Garrard, Blaine Gabbert, right? It's not guaranteed. But if you want to put yourself in a position to try to develop, if the Browns went with the first-round pick this year or next year, that's what you want to have available to them. It's not a high chance of success. You know, the odds to being a franchise-level quarterback are just brutal. Like, straight up. Like, we're looking at quarterbacks who survived 5 more years that were drafted in the NFL. The survival rate is like 50%. Only 50% of all drafted quarterbacks have a career longer than their rookie contract. Think about that. 50%. Think about every quarterback in this draft class. Odds are that 50% of them gone. Gone in a couple of years. That's the reality of it. If we're talking about guys who can make, like, top all-pro, if we're talking about the probability that you could get somebody who could make a all-pro team at the quarterback position, it's 4.6%. That's 1 out of 22 quarterbacks. 1 out of every 22 quarterbacks drafted makes a all-pro team at least once in their career. That's 4.6%. The odds are ridiculously against anybody who's going to be, even if they're a top 5 pick, the odds are against them to be a all-pro caliber quarterback. The odds are against most quarterbacks who are drafted to be able to survive longer than 5 years. So I don't say any of this as if to make it seem like, oh, if you just put the incubator here and there, you could just develop quarterbacks no problem, like it's an assembly line. The reality is you could have a perfect incubator and still have multiple quarterbacks fail because they're just simply not good enough. My point isn't to say that it's going to be easy for the Browns to find a quarterback. My point isn't to say that, oh, all we need to do is have these things and we can find a quarterback. No, my point is this. For when the Browns do get lucky and they do draft somebody who's worthy of being a quarterback, I want them to be in the position to be able to develop that guy properly so that they don't miss out. Because the possibility of getting somebody talented enough to play quarterback in the NFL is already difficult enough to begin with. I don't want them to ruin their chances because they can't develop that quarterback properly. I don't want us to have to look at another drafted quarterback or to be like the Jets and say, hey, what if Geno Smith worked out here? What if Sam Darnold worked out here, right? I don't want the Browns to be in that situation soon because it seems like they're going to be drafting a quarterback early soon. That's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.